Well, welcome to the Dream Labs with Dr. Contrast Live here today. I just thought to back a bit of a review here before we begin to put some finishing touches to the landing version or the hangar version of the Manticore we've been working on for the last day or two, and I really want to thank you for the time spent coming in and working with me on this program. As of yesterday, I think we got a lot of progress made getting the character. Hey, hi Chip, how are you? Yeah, missiles that yet to come, so we're going to add some features of that pretty soon there, Chip. How you doing? Thank you very much for joining in here. As you can see, I just kind of finished up a little bit yesterday, was adding us a little more detail. I think today we're going to spend some time trying to get this warming up a little bit with some architectural features here, and put enough kind of a composing presence in this thing to kind of settle a little bit throughout the course of the stream today. And then tomorrow we'll come back in and really finish up a little sky tone in the background here and kind of warm it up a little bit more. And add some finishing detail touches with not bad. How are you? Hey, good. I'm doing well, Chip. Thanks. It's always good to have you on board, and thanks so much for spending the time to come with us here. But I think really, I think the aspect that I really appreciate about this one, I think it's beginning to tell the story about the scale and some of the character, the features we have here. Like I said yesterday, we've got this guy, which is interesting in terms of having it all composed and into attack mode. That tells a story about what the thing is going to look like in flight, but I think it really kind of told the story when we had the program, the running program for about 4 or 5 shows with Shadow and the gang, to get into another variation where you actually could see the scale of this thing on the ground level. So today, as I said, we're going to go through just some neutral tones to kind of bring up some of the architectural pieces and add some little more detail into the machine. And I think what I'd do, save that for tomorrow, kind of let that settle a little bit, and then tomorrow's stream at 2:30, we'll just start looking at getting some sky tone and adding some more highlight and detail and really kind of finishing this thing out, hopefully, for the processor. Let's get this thing a shot here. Let's get back in. Let's get this architecture tuned a little bit. I'm going to come back up on top of these spears and throw a little bit of value gray. You can see we come up here to tone this guy a little bit. Start here. Keep it nice and neutral. And begin to reflect some of this tone back into it as we go down the line here. So there's A, and there's B. Just gets enough. Just a number 1 cool gray, just to kind of tone it back a little bit, and we'll come back into that in time here and start putting some warmth into this architectural statement. I think neutral's a good call because it'll keep it pretty much the warm cool phenomenon, especially with the sky tone coming in. We're going to go in a nice cerulean or bright blue for the sky tone. And by the way, Chip, thanks very much for the input yesterday. I missed that on your commentary about getting into some of the pieces with the sky tone. I thought I was going to go a little bit more of the wild toxic atmosphere like we had in the other piece, for example, the attack version, but I think you're the person, individual, that suggested going to some neutral, real cerulean blues or earth sky. So I think that'll help it out a lot. I really appreciate that input. So thank you, sir. And let's see, we've got that all squared away. Let's put that aside for a minute. Let's go back to the lightest tone here and start walking in some of these surfaces and see what they look like here. Again, nice and warm. Let's come back in through here. Just cool it off a little bit. Just some neutral tones. Just nice and easy, just walking it through here, just blushing it in. We can add details as we go here. Get the roof structure in place. Nice and just brush it in. Change the pace to get a little more atmosphere in this thing. I think it'll really help too to kind of take the curse off of that evil, kind of very sinister looking machine in the landing platform there. So there we are, a little more tone into that, a little more tone into this. Just a little touch of that and run that across, a little bit of reflected light. Let's get this guy in place. And again, into the light source will come up on top with this leading edge here. Put that across. Everything in the highlight here will just come up with this nice neutral beige or sand color. Let that go. Again, through here. So there's little tiny peak places here. We get this all toned in. And we can evaluate it from there. What that does, come across the face of this thing, just kind of wash it out and let it go at that. See what that does. Yeah, see, I think it's going to work out pretty nicely. Just keep it nice and calm. Not too strong, just a nice balance between the evil look of this guy and almost the sinister military apparel and that very soft architectural piece in the backdrop here. So let's kind of go back in here, just carry on with this lighter surface and see what we come up with here. I think it's going to make a huge difference. Let's warm this up just a bit too. Reflect a bit more of that into it. Take that into account, that into place. Let's bring that right up that runner. That's kind of a neat little deal. Just kind of offset that paint scheme there. And we'll tone it. It's going to go a little darker because it's in shadow. I just want to set the scale there, see what it might look like with that nice neutral. So that's not bad. That's going to be okay. That brings it up here. Let's see here. It's going to go down a step here and move into this. Let's put in a little bit of shadow of this thing. That's going to go negative, so let's put that a little deeper. There we go. That's helping. And we get this guy in here. A little more shadow in it, which is going to happen. That will do that. And let's get that in place. That third structure. Let's put more tone change in this dome up on top here. Here we are. Flipping into here. And just enough of this kind of reflecting back into the roof surface. There we go. That's starting to help kind of balance things out. What do you think, Chip? So far, so good? Windows. Yeah, he'll have a bit of a task there in front of him, don't you think? That'd be kind of interesting to see what he does with that. So there we are with that. Now let's see what happens here. Let's kind of go back to this. Let's go back to these verticals, these hotel structures back here. And let's see if we can get this guy all squared away here. Let's put this in the shadow here, this little sliver. Let's get this in place. Let's go back to that lighter neutral here. Let's kind of walk in some of these surfaces. I think the more warmth we bring into that thing is what's going to really announce or pronounce, for example, the actual machine in front here. So let's kind of walk this in here. Very delicate to not confuse it with the actual vehicle itself. There we are. Start there. Let's bring that back into play here. There's one surface. It's going to come back and go a little bit more depth with a little bit of shadow break on this guy. A bit of a contour change here. Bring that into play. A little bit of tone change there and there. Same thing on this little right-hand bank. Bring that down into play. Let's kind of neutralize this just a bit more. Bring that in. And again with this. Okay. Well, what do you think, Chip, so far? Coming along all right? I think that warm tone really kind of helps kind of set the ambience a little bit better. It's not as coarse. So I think we're in pretty good shape here. So let's come back in through here. Let's see. Let's go back into this. Just the lighter one. No, let's go back to that lighter piece here. Get this other structure in place. And again, we'll walk through this guy. Pardon me for rotating this guy a bit. Hey, hi, Brett. How are you? Boy, it's really good to have you on board. Hey, Brett, good to have you on board here. How's everything? I hope you're feeling well. You're still pretty busy with school now, or are you pretty well set up and ready to release and go here? But it's good to have you on board. Thanks for taking the time to join us, hey, Brett. Stay tuned here. It's gonna be. We're just kind of working on the trying to wrap up this hangar version of the Manticore. I'm just letting in some really nice neutral tones in the architecture behind it all to set it off. It can bring a more warmth to it and then really accentuate the military aspect of the vehicle we're working with on design here. So let's kind of stain this in. Pardon me as I turn it upside down, just to kind of get some surface work in here. Same with this one. Walk it in first. come back in and detail it as we go. Just going to neutralize that just a bit more as well. Turn that sideways just a bit here. Get that stick underneath there. Let's go back to that secondary tone. All right, Brett, thank you. I'm done with school now. You seek your infinite joy. Hey, well, congratulations, Brad. It's good to have you on board, and I'm really glad it all went well. I'm sure you had a pretty successful semester, and so pleased you've taken the time to join us here. This is going to be fun to watch this thing unfold here. So hang on, man. Here we go. Just going to go back in here. Let's get a little bit of secondary tone change here. Just going to change the character of this building just a bit. Go back here just a bit. A little bit of shadow in these domes, these cantilevers. And again, a little bit of shadow. Just going to push this into place here. And there we are. That kind of blocks them in a little bit. Kind of keeping it nice and neutral. I don't want to get too bizarre here, because I think what's going to take place, I'm trying to set it up so that the warm side, or the warmth of the architecture against the really brilliant earth sky, is going to be a nice balance against the coolness of the craft itself. So let me know what you think here, guys, as we go along the line. Let me see if I can just put a little more tone in this thing here. Come back in, put a little more in this underside. That's better. Same with this, and we'll just kind of change that texture to this. Now let's kind of put this in place here. And nice and neutral, not to conflict with the aircraft or the ship down below. There we are. Turn us upside down here for a moment. Really want to stain that in, so we get a little bit of a section drop or a distinction on what that thing is doing. So we can kind of drop it back a little bit, so you're into light source, into under shadow, reflected light, light source again, back to the little bit reverse section here to get the read here. So thank you. Okay, no problem. Okay. Let's turn to the corner with this little guy. Put a little bit of tone in that as we go down the line here. Okay, notes there we are. It's got a little more animation up on top of that roof. Get that thing to shadow a little bit there. So what do you think, gang? Coming along so far? It's a pretty interesting set of circumstances here. Let's do this. Let's come back in and get a little bit more of this tone down below, kind of ground this thing. Come back and pick up a little more detail on that as we go down the line here. Well, so far so good. That composition's sort of kind of fall together nicely here, I think. Not too much strain, just enough information to let it kind of run a little bit. And since we've got a little that darker comment in here, let's get some scale change on this piece of architecture. Pardon me. We'll get some definition in there a little bit later as we go down the line here. And let's go back one more pass and through at the ground level here. Then we'll come back to that lighter value so we can pick it up. Let's just do one more thing here. Let's get one more contour in this shadow piece here. Go just a touch darker. That's going to be a little stronger. A bit of a breakdown here. Let that thing to shadow just a bit more as it turns a corner. There we are. So what do you think here, gang, so far? Yeah, it's coming along. I wonder how is it feng shui energy? Are the windows facing south? Yes, they are. Let's put more tone in this thing too. It's going to drop this back just a bit more. Just enough tone in there. Yeah, that's starting to come along pretty nicely. We'll just reflect enough of that ground back up into those spears. And again, let's see, I don't know if I really appreciate them. I'd like to go back a little deeper with this piece up on top of this dome. That's going to be better. Just a little more content in this thing. That's stronger. A little more shadow in the glass. And again, so far so good. I think that's coming along pretty nicely here. Let's see what we've got here. Let's come back in with this lighter, with this last tone here. Let's see, we've got this 31, I believe it is. Yeah, there we are. Let's go back just a touch more and drop this back just a bit, as it is in shadow. So we can get some sprayed light across that. Kind of open up that form and allow the aircraft to breathe a little bit more. Keeping it delicate, not too much push, just enough to save it from being so. alcove to read a little bit better what shadow is doing to it. And there we are, a little bit of an offset. So what do you think, gang? So far so good? I never thought I'd like a tan building. Well, I think that's a good point, Chip. I think the reason I went to the neutrals was because of the sand color. I think it's kind of keeping it, and I was thinking ahead down the line here when we all put it together, was going to really kind of balance it out. Going back to the cools would be the sky tone to kind of neutralize the blues, and I'll reflect a lot of light into that too. So I'm just kind of building a shell here as we go. So don't be deceived by the fact that that's going to be the final setup here. So let's kind of put the last little piece in place here, and we'll get this face in place. See what that starts to do for us here. There it is. Get some across the upper here. All right, as I move around here just a little bit, get this to function a little bit more. Let that go off the page. Let's get this into place here. Get a little bit of that neutral in there, and that shadow to drop a little bit better for us. Let's get that just enough. Just take it out of. There we are. Little keyhole piece there, that's it. All right, what do you think, gang? So far so good, hopefully. Just kind of falling into place, so we get this back in line here. Again, notice how like the repeating pattern between the wing and the lower tower in the back. Yeah, that's kind of neat how it just, the tower in the back just kind of picks up the same kind of detail that we've got in the wing system there. So repeating pattern between the wing and the tower in the back, between the wing and the tower. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So just interesting how we're going to come back and pick up the Bantu language when we're all said and done here. But as far as putting it all in sequence here, just going to a little bit more detail work in the upper itself. Just kind of get these again, these architectural pieces are almost delicate. So I'm really kind of careful about going. If I went to a gray building, for example, or stone color, would have been really, I think, a little bit dangerous. Kind of would blend into the actual vehicle itself. That's why I went to the warmer tones here, Chip, so we can kind of keep this thing nice and deliberate in terms of the balance between hardcore, very militaristic, evil-looking piece, and then a very soft architectural statement up on top here with the actual pieces themselves. So let's kind of go back in here, add a little bit more detail. These veins to offset a little bit. Maybe it'll help keep the windows clean, Chip, who knows. It puts a little bit more definition in some of those slats up underneath the pillar surface of the actual glass itself. That's going to be part of the Bantu language, and then picking that up in some of the architecture as well. think that's part of the intent here, Chip, so we kind of keep it all compatible. And of course, while I'm at, in a moment here, I'll just take a bit of a break and let you know that this is just blushing it all in. Once we get the sky in place, I'll start reflecting some light and then taking care of the ground plane as well and getting some reflecting of the tones back into the surface. So when it's all said and done, it'll be pretty photographically representative of what this form is going to look like, what the overall composition is going to do. So as we stated yesterday, I spent the majority of the time in the stream just laying in, for example, the actual vehicle itself and really focusing on the architecture today, getting some detail work and getting that all to compose very nicely, then come back in and really put the emphasis on highlighting the vehicle itself, adding more definition in the buildings, the sky tone and reflected light, and then finishing off with some really interesting drawing details. So all that's yet to come, gang. So bear with me here. Thank you. Well spelt too. Always careful to be very methodical in terms of step-by-step processing, so you don't overcommit too much, but at the same time, you're kind of telegraphing what the form is going to do and what the actual statement's going to make when it's all said and done. So there's a lot of mystery yet to be revealed, and it'll really start to jump once we start adding tempera, some more highlight and much more contrast, and with the sky tone and reflected light, it really will be very helpful putting the whole piece together. And just kind of slow this down just a bit, get these last little pieces in place. There we are, little by little, it's coming together. Let me turn this sideways just a bit here, gang, so I kind of, there we are, better angle. Let's bring this together. And there we go. I might just take a moment here when we detail the thing later on, just detailing the daylights out of the, some more shadow up in those flats underneath the roof surface itself, and come back in and really do a nice job of getting that all tuned in here. Just enough to warm it up. I think really makes a huge difference here. And, you know, I think that's really beginning to help quite a bit. Let's go back in and add a couple more passes on that lighter sand here. See what we come up with just to keep it nice and neutral here. One more pass at this guy. Pardon me as I turn it again. A little bolder. A little bolder. And there we are. Let's come back in here just for a second. Let me switch gears just for a moment for to get that pencil out here. There we are. We've got one handy here. Just want to start to break this up just a bit more here. See, that's what happened when we start adding a little bit of highlight. I don't know if you can read that or not, but it's just really starting to come together, and picking up some of the detail was extremely helpful. And as we go here, we'll add a lot more definition, I'm sure, as we see this thing unfold here. So a little bit of highlight in there and there and there, and we'll come back in and just pick up just a tad more. I'm going to come back into this base here. And some little touches of definition here really make a huge difference. Let's get that centered up over there. It's not bad here. Slats are coming together pretty nicely. The composition is looking pretty good. We'll come back and add a little bit more detail in this thing. Let's see what happens here. We kind of just dust this off just a bit more. Get that guy to run just a little bit for us here. We're almost at the point there where I'm really kind of closing in on getting this thing pretty well set up as far as what the conversation is going to look like, how we're going to treat this thing in the end here. Let's see, a little bit deeper. It's 31. I think we'll try that. Just get a little more shadow on this structure here. That's a little bit better. So there it is, just about home. Looking pretty interesting here as far as getting things set up here. Just really, just want to sit back and take a good inventory here about where we are, and does it really kind of come together for us a little bit. Let me go back to this lighter, this 00 here, and just put a little more wash in some of this stuff. There we are. And lo and behold, I think we're just about home. I think kind of warms it up a little bit. It's a lot more intense on the screen, I noticed, than it is in the actual finished piece here. So it's a lot softer in nature here. It's interesting how little bits and pieces kind of come together. Let's put a little bit of detail in this guy here. What we had on the other piece. Go back in the vehicle for a touch here. Get some of those areas kind of locked in. Little touches of detail here and there. Let's go back and just see if we can put a little bit of a landing pad here. Come back in and really accentuate this. We add the sky. And really looking forward to coming back and really rebounding and putting a lot of reflected light back into the actual floor surface itself. Once the sky tone goes in, and we have a little more time in drawing definition, and then we just kind of sharpen up a bit here so we can kind of get this line drawing squared away here, so we're not pushing it too deeply and getting it all set up here. Let's kind of go back and get this into place. I'm not going to touch any more marker up in here, so I'm just going to get more drawing definition back into this thing. And save some of that human scale for A little bit later here, let's get that wing surface put in place. Again, like we've all said, a lot of the streams, it really helps an awful lot is when you come back down to the nitty gritty. It always comes back down to drawing. Hey, Brad, are you still there? Hopefully you're kind of tuning in here a little bit. Any commentary you guys want to make here about where we are thus far? I mean, again, remember, all that'll kind of come together when we start to put together the essence of the sky tone, getting some of that reflected back into the ground surface and the like. I think it'll be really interesting to see what that begins to do. I just want to take my time and really kind of piece my way through this thing to give it a real good relationship from one side to the other, because we really have two pieces of art here. I think that's going to do a nice job of putting the portfolio together and getting it out there for, print publication for sale and so forth. So I want to make sure that we can really get a nice system put together here. Let me just go back in there for a second here. I'm going to go back and get this gunning system, this pod. Just little touches like that. We'll come back in with some tempera. Drawing definition, no doubt. Big, huge asset. Going to be sweet with a skybox. Yeah, it's going to be neat. It's really interesting how it gets to put together here. So once the sky goes in and we get a lot of the detail work squared away, I think it's going to make a huge difference with the overall impact of the actual form itself. What I think is working out pretty nicely here is that counterpoint between the softness and the warmth of the actual architecture, and again, against the stone cold, very wicked looking machine down below in the landing platform here. So it has a lot to do with just getting it all very well organized and then taking the time to do it right and just slowing it all down and getting enough information in here to kind of make it all kind of click. So very interesting indeed. So not bad at all here, gang. So don't know if we want to go back to that. Yeah, maybe we can try that. Let's see what happens if we do this. Enough just want to see if this is going to work at all here. Let's kind of bring this into play here. Let's do this. Very delicately reflect this guy. Hold that back just a bit. It's not bad. A little bit of reflected light. We'll put some more sky into that thing. That'll really begin to help it too as we go down the line here. Let's see, let's put this thing back into place so you can see what we're after. And there it is. So far, I'm just kind of evaluating where we are here as far as content goes. Once we get that, get those pieces put into place here, let's kind of go back in and get this, tighten that shadow back up a little bit. So there we are. Playing the silence here, just kind of tuning some things up a little bit. So there we go, gang. Just an interesting little set of circumstances. Kind of wash that in. I thought we got some pretty good, pardon me. But I got some interesting concept pieces here to kind of deal with. I think the idea, I think it's starting to read one against the other. Let you guys be the judge of this. What do you think thus far? I mean, I don't want to go too much further with some of the architecture here. I don't want to overkill it in terms of being too strong or too bold with it, but I think there's enough detail in here to kind of put it all together. And I just think it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like when it all comes together. And with the sky in place, and again, really interesting. I approve. Hey, very good, Chip. That's looking good. What do you think? Hey, Brad, are you still there? Just going to get an idea from your piece of, get your information there. And then again, notice what's beginning to happen too is the idea of coming back in and really spend a lot of time here tomorrow on tomorrow's stream. I just want to let this settle in a little bit here. Tomorrow's stream, really going back in, adding a lot of temper and highlight on the machine, and some appropriate detail and line work back in the structures of the building, and then adding the sky, getting a very Earth-like sky, and then coming back and reflecting that back into the ground plane, and maybe some of it into the aircraft, into the ship as well. So I think that's all yet to come, gang. It's going to be interesting to see. When all begins to unfold. I'm so far, very pleased with the composition. I hope you are as well. I think we're coming along nicely with a nice push at this guy. And again, there's enough content here to kind of hold it anymore. I think we start to destroy some of the presence of making sure this guy becomes the focal point. And again, dropping this down a little bit warmer in the backdrop, I think is a big help. Adding some more detail to kind of close it all in and kind of center the actual vehicle and the actual piece itself has really been helpful here. So I think that's going to be cool here, guys. And I think with all due respect, I'm going to give this thing a bit of a break to kind of walk into it and let it settle a little bit and kind of look at it, reanalyze it, and we'll kind of pick it up in tomorrow's stream when we kind of go at it here with just laying in some of the pieces. And again, being very methodical. I just don't care for pushing things when we know you've got a pretty good set of circumstances to deal with. And again, the biggest thing I want to really relate to is keeping the relationship between that guy, which is the attack version, and color and kind of totally different atmosphere, obviously. But again, the relationship of the scale is what's really important about this one here. Getting the scale to begin to read really well. And I'll work on that tomorrow with some more human scale, kind of highlighting that, making sure that everything else is falling into place and it keeps a nice composition all the way through. So with all that, any comment in closing here, Chip, at all? Just want to wrap it up and just let this kind of settle a little bit and then see what happens with it. With tomorrow's stream, we'll really kind of put the heat to it and finally finalize in detail a lot of the information that we're showing you here. So, and again, highlight sky, more drawing definition, really kind of putting all the pieces together nicely and adding some of the Banu language in the buildings, in the wing structure itself. So, so everything good? I much appreciate it, Chip. I'm just going to give this thing a little bit of a rest here, and we'll pick up tomorrow's stream at 2:30. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you so much for tuning in, Chip, Brett, and everybody else. I really appreciate you taking the time here, guys. And if you have a moment, please feel free to visit my website at drcontrast.com. There's some lessons there to work with and basic drawing skills if you're anyone who's interested. And I really would appreciate you all passing that information along to the people I'm working with. So we'll see what is going to take care here. And again, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow, Chip, at 2:30. I'll make sure we wrap it all up and get some good sky tone surfaces in and details we've talked about here throughout the course of the day. And again, please visit my website, drcontrast.com, and please, I really am looking forward to getting some information from you guys as well. Feel free to drop me a note at the Dr. Contrast, Jim at drcontrast.com, and that's my email address. Drop me a note, see what you think about certain things, future reference things to work on. It'll be a lot of fun to see what you want to work with here. And I really appreciate the input. So hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Chip, take care of yourself. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 2:30. Pass the word along that we're live at 2:30, and we'll wrap this beauty up. Again, I was really making a point to finish up the program with this very, very, very important announcement and commentary. Never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Have a great day and take care. Thanks. Bye-bye now.